Obviously, Joe, you've heard it before and people talk about you. Joe Thomas, tremendous player, bad team. Does that mentally, has that ever bothered you that there always has to be that caveat, you know?
Yeah, ask me my first or second year in the NFL, it would have drove me bananas.
Hey guys, before we really kick it off here, I want to say a big thank you to our sponsor, the Game Time app. If you guys don't know about Game Time yet, it is the official ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. And really, it's the best spot to go. If you're looking for a concert, a game, whatever it is, I know we got my producer right there. We got the sponsor. He's been on me to get Rangers tickets. He wants Rangers playoff tickets, so we're going to try to make it happen. And really, the Game Time app is the best spot to make that happen because they are guaranteed to be the lowest price, especially last minute. They cracked the code on how to score the last minute deals. So make sure you're make sure you're looking out for them. The purchase process takes 2 taps, literally 10 seconds. And once you buy your tickets, they're delivered right to your phone. You don't got to worry about, standing outside going, oh no, I need a printer. None of that with the Game Time app. So make sure you're downloading it. Make sure, NBA playoffs, MLB season, make sure you're using the Game Time ticket app. So download the Game Time app today. Go to the account tab to create a login and redeem code REBUILD for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. And download Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Code is REBUILD. Like we said, go do that. Make sure you're getting your tickets with Game Time. We appreciate them. They support us. So you should hopefully support them. Thank you. All right, bang, bang. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 1, Week 1, whatever you want to call it, of RebuilEd, a Barstool Sports podcast with Eddie from Barstool Sports. And we got Tim Grover here. Tim, I said this to the first time I talked to you. Trainer, speaker, author, what exactly is the best way to go about introducing you here?
You just did.
That's everything? I feel like I missed something, though.
Yeah, there's a lot more, but that's all right. Hey, listen, what I just said, the easiest way to describe me, that's a bad motherfucker.
There you go. So here's what the show is. Here's how this came about. Tim, we had you on Redline Radio, our Barstool Chicago podcast last summer. And Tim, you came into the game as a trainer, right?
Yes.
And you work with some of the biggest athletes in the world. You worked with Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, you name it. And I sat there and I was like, man, and in the interview, we found out that our old office in Ukrainian Village, you were like a block away from us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I was like, I don't know, something just connected to me that I was like, all right, we have this guy who's just right in our backyard. And, obviously a situation of, getting in shape and losing weight and stuff, and something that I just personally have been wanting to do and have to do.
Sure.
And I was like, the content just kind of came together in my head. So
I was actually at Bocce's Pizza when you guys were doing it. No, I'm just messing.
That's
right how close I was to the office.
Well, we talked about it too. We talked about Bocce's actually. Like, oh yeah, that's where I run to get a quick slice. So it just happened. I was like, man, how cool would that be to just be able to sit down, have Tim put me on a program, and be able to talk about your experiences with these athletes and just training in general, and the mental state and everything that goes into it. And, you go from the athlete to the blogger, to the sports blogger, because the way I see it is there's a lot of guys that follow Barstool Sports or girls that, spend too much time on the couch and watch too much football and, eat too much and drink too much. And I don't know, I think there's an area here where it could work out where our audience would be very interested in this.
Yeah, listen, we all have habits and we want to do things to the extreme. The way to be successful at it is when you do things to extreme, do you know why you're doing them to an extreme and how often are you doing them to the extreme? You talked about watching too much football, eating too much, and so forth. There's other ways that you have people that work out too much, or they don't work. They actually do the things that everyone says is good for them. They actually do too much of those things. So there's a finding a balance in all the way to actually get the results that you're looking for. What happens is people go from one extreme to the other. Is you have to know why. What is causing you to watch too much football? What is causing you to eat too much? What is causing you not to exercise? You have to identify that first. Everyone always talks about, what's your why? What's your purpose in life? Well, I always ask my athletes or anybody I'm dealing with, even yourself, and it's just like, what's the reason why you do those things, because there's a psychological component to your success that we have to master that first. Because if you just go with the physical thing, you're going to end up where most people end up when they do their New Year's resolutions. They get to the gym, they said, hey, I'm going to you haven't worked out since last year, and it's January 1, and you're like, January 1 falls in on a Saturday or a Friday. You're like, you know what? I'm gonna wait until Monday. So you go excessive over the weekend, and then you go in and you start to do everything that you haven't done for a year, and you do that to an excess. Well, it's going to fail. But why is the reason you're doing those things? Identify those things first, then you can start finding your way to success.
Yeah, and how this show too, when we were pitching it to Barstool and everything, they were under the impression that it was going to be kind of like a drop in, give me 20 type show. And that's where it's different with you. It's finding what needs to happen at the forefront rather than like, here's what you need to fix.
Yeah, listen, anybody, it's just like you can pull up any diet. All right, they all work. You just got to do them. They all work. But there's a reason people can't finish those programs. There's a reason, or they start the program and they finish it, and then they go back to their old habits. You need to identify those things first. And the crazy thing about actually getting in shape and losing weight, exercise is the least important thing. And when people look at it, they're going to probably think, well, you're crazy. No, it's the least important thing. For people that work out, you go to the gym every single day, you'll see people in there for years and years and years. They look exactly the same. They look exactly the same. And they're some of the most consistent people in there. It's not the 2 hours that you spend in the gym. It's the 22 hours you spend out of the gym that has a bigger impact on the way you look physically, the way you feel mentally, the way you feel about yourself. Those are the more important hours than the time that you spend in the gym.
That's the 22 20 is 22 verse 2 is very interesting. So, yeah. And that's the kind of stuff we're going to be talking about here. Like, we're going to be going over a plan. It's going to be 8 weeks. Like, we want the audience to kind of get involved and join along. We
don't kind of want you. We want you involved in this thing.
Yeah, very
we want
much
you to
so.
We want you this. Listen, this isn't just about losing weight. This is about becoming more healthy, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it is. These principles apply to any kind of change you want in your life. We've gone through these times already where your health has been, it's been compromised. It's been compromised physically from all the stuff that's been going on in the world. You've been compromised mentally by being inside, by having to watch the news and watch the stuff over and over again. You don't know what to believe, what not to believe. So there's a lot of compromisers going in there. Now it's time for you to take control over what you want and get those results. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're doing these 8 weeks. That's why I want everybody to join it. This isn't just don't join this to lose weight. If that's your goal, great. But this is to come out better in everything.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it's RebuilEd, the name of the show. It's a little play on my name at the end there, but it's for everyone to you got to rebuild something. So that's the way we looked at it too. So
everybody's rebuilding something. Listen, the only thing that they don't rebuild in Chicago are the roads. That's the only thing I know. But everything else, you have to rebuild. And when you rebuild, what happens? You got to make your foundation stronger. And that's what a rebuild is about. It's about understanding your foundation and seeing if there are any cracks in there and what you have to do to fix those cracks. Once you rebuild and restructure the foundation, then the rest of it will take care of itself.
Yeah, and then this is it. This is the next 8 weeks. This is going to be season 1, Eddie and Tim. And we're going to be going week-to-week progress with me. We're going to be talking different lessons from Tim. And we got some great guests joining us along the way. So I think people will really enjoy it.
So for the first 4 weeks, it'll be Eddie and Tim. And for the last 4 weeks, it'll be Tim and Eddie.
There we go. That's fine with me. Whatever we do, it's perfect. That's perfect. So all right then. So we're kicking it off here.
Hold on, before we get started, what the hell is this Bam Bam thing?
So that's what you asked me that before. You thought it was Bam Bam from the Flintstones.
No one on this show is going to know what the hell the Flintstones are,
I think
me. Other than me and Sherry. She's the only one that's going to know what the hell the Flintstones
I don't know.
are.
Yeah, people still probably eat the Fruity Pebbles and stuff, There's probably some overlay there. So I don't know. So when I first started doing this thing, I always thought it was just weird, like, and too proper to be like, all right, welcome back to the show. Like, here we, like, I don't know. So I just wanted something to say, to get out there. So it was all right, bang, bang. People ask me all the time what I say. And so I just put it like that. And then it's like, all right, you're off to the races. You're good to go.
Bang, so it's not Bam Bam, it's Bang Bang.
It's bang, bang, yes.
Got it. Okay.
I say it so fast that people are always like, I'm dying to know what you say at the beginning.
That's your thing. We got it.
Yes. So, and then it came into a thing where it's like, should I do it all the time for certain shows, or should I just do it, in certain spots? But I just kind of kept it to just everything.
I like it. Now I understand.
Yes.
I got it.
Because when I don't do it, then people are like, "Oh man, you got to always use that." So I went with it. So, but yeah, what do you think? What's something? How different is it going to be working with me versus Michael Jordan?
You know what? So it's not going to. The rebuild has to start. It starts with everyone. So when I started with Michael, it was he had to gain weight. So I had to teach him, hey, these are this is the way you're going to gain weight. Just like people learn how to lose weight and get in better health, there's a certain way you have to gain weight properly. We just did our interview with Joe, and his idea was like, what did they tell him? Like, hey, listen, you need to gain weight, and they were just throwing, hey, this is what you need to eat, this is what you need to eat, this is what you need to eat. Now there's different ways of putting weight on an athlete and not figuring out a way to enhance their performance. I consider everybody I work with, including yourself, you're an athlete. So what we want to do is, with you and the individuals that are out there that are interested in losing weight, how can you lose weight and enhance your performance? Like, be able to do things better, be a better blogger, have a more effective podcast, get more of the bang bang out of everything. There's certain ways of doing that, but everybody wants that right away, and you have to go through what I have to say. You got to take that bus ride to hell first, before you can actually understand where the rewards are and what's going on. So what you can deal with that stuff. And that's the stuff that we're going to go to. You deal with that bus ride, you understand what's going on, and you'll be able to understand that, listen, once I deal with this stuff, how much louder, how much more effective the bang bangs are going to be in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense too,
and it's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
No one said it's going to be easy.
And do you find that typically, like, that's when people contact you, when it's like they're on that bus ride to hell?
Yeah, well, usually I'm the one driving that bus.
Yeah,
I'm the one usually driving that bus, because I always tell them, say, listen, here's the thing. You have to take that bus ride, because here's what happens when you don't get results. So I'd rather have you take that trip to hell, because once you take the trip, you're a guest. You can leave. All right? If hell comes visits you, you have a hell of a hard time getting them out of your house. And a lot of people get to a certain point in their life, in their health, in their physical well-being, in their mental state, where they decided not to go not to take that trip. And we all have to take that trip. Every professional athlete, every business individual, anytime they've reached their metrics, for an athlete, it's the championship. For a business, for a company, it's their numbers, their quarterly numbers, however they do their thing, however they do their things. When they reach those goals, they have to get back on that. They have to get back on that bus again. And the best thing about it is, the more success you have, the less time you still have to take the trip. The less time you have to stay down there. You just go down there. It's a reminder to yourself, hey, this is where my foundation is. This is what it's the stuff I've had to deal with in my life. Did I still understand it? So instead of you decide to take that trip instead of that trip coming to visit you.
That's a fascinating way to look at it. But most people have hell visit them, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like way more. Like people, how typically do people seek you out when things are going well versus vice versa when they're like, hey, I want to.
Well, I'm usually what I always say, the one thing I've built my business on is I'm the last phone call people make. I'm like the last person they call when everything else isn't working out, or the individual that's already had so much success at whatever they're doing and they want to get even better, and people come to them and say, well, you already have everything. Why do you want more? You've won championships. You have millions of dollars. You have this. You have that. And these individuals say, well, it's not enough. And they have to understand. They have to have somebody who's understands that mentality. But the way this works out so well is my whole business and reputation has been built on taking individuals that have a lot of success and making them having them even more successful. So having success at success. So if you can take an individual who's already in great shape or a great athlete or who has an unbelievable mindset and you can make them 1% better, imagine how much room for growth you have if you're just getting started in your journey. If you just apply these principles. The things that you get in our 8 weeks is you're not going to get the typical cliches that everybody says. Oh, you got to go want it. You got to grind. You got to work hard. Everybody knows those things already. If it was that easy, be like, okay, you click on, you go click on, you listen to a couple of motivational videos, and be like, okay, I got this figured out. Well, if people are hearing the same message over and over and over again and trying to get different results, it doesn't work like that.
Do you dislike when people will say like, oh, he does these speaking engagements because that's a big thing you do now? Do you dislike when people are like, oh, he's just trying to be like this motivational speaker and whatnot? Because you say you're not a motivational speaker.
I'm not a motivational speaker. There's a difference. All right. Motivate, and for some individuals who are just getting started on their journey, I do want to motivate you. But eventually, I want you to be able to elevate yourself. I'm an individual that elevates people's lives, and that elevates their results. So what happens is motivation is what you need from somebody else. And when you're initially getting started in your journey, so probably in the first 2, 3, 4 weeks, you'll need motivation. All right. Elevation is what you demand from yourself. So one is what you need external, the other is internal. The most successful people, the people that don't have the yo-yos on their health all the time, they know how to elevate themselves because it's about accountability. It's about what they're demanding on themselves. If you constantly need motivation from other individuals, you're constantly looking for somebody else to constantly push you, to tell you how great you are, that, somebody you can tell your excuses to. I want you to start with motivation, but I want you to get to the point where you're elevating you're elevating yourself to a different level.
And how did this all start for you? Like, how did it go into the story about how you met Michael and everything like that?
Well, so our stories are a little bit similar. So when I was and it's going to be hard to believe for individuals, but I was that fat kid in elementary school. I was extremely athletic, but I was a heavy kid, and there were certain exercises I just couldn't do. I remember this vividly. When I went to school, you had to take gym class. There was no There was no
opting out.
There was no opting out. There was no getting a note from your parents and your doctor and all that other stuff. So certain things I could do. I was able, the basic sports. I was able. Baseball, I could hit and I could catch. And football, I could run a little bit. I could throw a football. Basketball, I could shoot and dribble. But then you got into different sports like gymnastics. I couldn't, boy. Trying to climb up the rope or the rings, I couldn't do it. I trying to jump over.
Rope day was the worst. That was a tough day.
Yeah, that was
rope day sucks.
It still sucks.
Yeah.
All right. I couldn't even jump over the pommel horse. People that don't know what that thing is, it's a gymnastics thing. So there was a lot of things that I couldn't do. All right. And listen, you think kids are ruthless now? All right. Imagine back then there is no social media, so they're like talking at you, right? And I was a part of that. I was on both ends. Couldn't do a push up. Couldn't do all those things. So I've had that experience, which allows me to get the results with individuals, because not only have I seen it from a physical standpoint, I've seen it from a mental and emotional standpoint. So then when I got to high school, I started to understand what it took a little bit more physically, and plus I couldn't eat as much because the transportation time from where I used to live to going to high school cut out a lot of time of eating wise. And then when I got to college, I wanted to study exercise. I wanted to study something in the health field, and exercise science and kinesiology was a new thing. So I took that. I finished my degree and everything. I went to work at a local health club with a master's degree. The minimum wage when I started working at this health club was $3.35. That was a minimum wage.
What year was that?
Oh my goodness, 80. It was in the early 80s. Mm-hmm. It was in the early. It's in one of the books. I can't remember what year, but it was $3.35. And what happened was, I went to work at this. I work at this local health club, and it was a great thing for me, because throughout all my schooling, all my books told me what to do. From a pragmatic standpoint, be able to look at stuff and understand the muscles and the movements and so forth. But I didn't have any experience. I really didn't have any experience other than working myself out. So this gave me the experience of being able to work individuals out, and I ended up training everybody from recreational athletes to people that just wanted to get in shape, dealing with injuries. And there was an article in a local newspaper that said Michael Jordan is tired of taking the physical abuse from the Detroit Pistons, and he's looking to get stronger. So what I did was I wrote 14 letters to all the Bulls players on the team. The one person I didn't write the letter to was Michael Jordan. Back then, remember, no emails, no cell phones. So people are like, well, why didn't you just text somebody? It didn't exist. It didn't exist back then for individuals. Like, there was actually a world before that. Yes, there was a whole world before that. All right. Then we used to the telephone. You had to stick your finger and dial a rotary dial. Yeah. So I put the letters in the mail, and back then the letters usually arrived to the players. They go in as fan mail, and they throw them into the lockers of the players. And if the players decide to read them, they read them. So Michael saw that letter in somebody's locker and pulled it out and told the team athletic director and the team physician to say, hey, find out what this kid's about. So they reached out to me, they contacted me, and then for 3 months they gave me more intense testing than I had in my 5 years of college.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, my goodness. They wanted to make sure I actually went to college and I learned something instead of not just they didn't tell me who the athlete was. But in my mind was like, okay, I didn't care. Like, whoever it is, if I could show the results with them, maybe that'll launch the career in the direction that I wanted to go in. So after 3 months, they gave me an address. They said, hey, go meet the client. Here's the address. They didn't tell me who it was. So I drive out there. And this was before the big gated house and all that other stuff. I rang the doorbell once, no answer. Rang it a second time, no answer. Rang it a third time. Michael Jordan answers the door. and I'm not a starstruck person. So that was it. So I said, okay, I'm not prepared. I had the programs for all the other 14 players. I did not have the program in my mind for him because I never thought about it. But obviously, with enough highlights, he was constantly on TV before, so I got to watch his movement patterns and so forth.
So when you say not a starstruck person, though, were you starstruck or you stayed cool?
No, I stayed cool.
You stayed cool. Okay.
I stayed cool. I'm not. My parents raised me that way. I'm not an individual that, like, when I see somebody, oh, there he is, or so forth. I respect the person's space.
Okay.
So I mean, obviously, I was like, all right, this is not who I was expecting, but here's the opportunity. So we went into the house. And we talked for. I told him. I said, "Hey, what are you looking to do?" Well, he goes, "I've talked to other individuals." He goes, "I want to bulk up. I need to get stronger." Well, I said, "How much weight do you want to put on?" He goes, "I'd like to put on about 15 or 20 pounds." And he goes, he explained to me what everybody else told him, and I just said. I said, "Well, why do you want to put on all this weight?" He goes, "Well, I want to be a better athlete. I want to be a better athlete. I want to be able to, sustain the punishment I'm giving him." And I said, I said, "Let me tell you, putting on that much weight right away is totally wrong." I said, "It's not going to be beneficial for you. It's going to be beneficial for you. It's actually going to hinder your progress." And he goes, "What are you talking about? Everybody else is telling me that this is the best thing for me." And I just said, "Michael." I said, you have three nagging injuries that you have to deal with on a regular, consistently through your career. I said, ankle, hamstring, and groin. I said, if we address those three things, you're automatically going to be a better athlete. You're already going to be faster. You'll already be stronger. You'll already be more effective. I said, if you add weight and we don't address those things are going to be even more problematic than they are now. And I said, putting this much weight on an individual who plays a sport as gracefully as you do, it's not going to complement what you're doing. I said, you should be looking at to put on anywhere from about 3 to 5 pounds of muscle every season and get to a weight where you feel comfortable at. And he goes, "Well, what's that weight?" I said, "I can't answer that question." I said, "That's for you to tell me." And he goes, "This doesn't sound right. No one's told me this." I said, "Well, it don't get any righter." And he goes, "All right." He goes, "I'll try it out for 30 days. And so I said, when do you want to start?" He goes, "Tomorrow." I was like, okay, so that way I got to remember, no Amazon back then, no place. So I'm like, all right, I literally have to go equip this. He gave me an area in the basement. I went out and got all the equipment that I needed, loaded it up there, put everything on my credit card, came back the next morning. I said, I need to get in the house at 5 a.m. He goes, "Why so early?" I said, "Because I got to put all this shit together." That's why. So I came in. He went to practice. By the time he came back from practice, the gym was ready. The gym was ready to go.
Wow. And do you think it was something like a dynamic where he had a lot of yes men around him and he liked that you were telling him something different, or he just had a good intuition, a good vibe about you? What do you think it was?
Well, you know what? I think a lot of people first, when Michael said this is what he wanted to do, no one wanted to disagree with him. They were like, "Yeah, we can do this," and it was somebody that actually. And the one thing I knew about Michael is he wanted to be challenged. He wanted to have understanding of what was going on, and the way I explained it to him, it made sense to him. And then I also told him. One of the things that I told him, I said, I will tell you exactly how you're going to feel after each workout. How you're going to feel an hour, 24 hours, 48 hours, exactly how your body's going to feel and what it's going to go through. So, for an individual who had never been serious about a training program other than running up and down the basketball court, being able to tell him how he's going to feel physically and mentally, the next day, 2 days from now, how his body's going to feel, what's going to be going on what's going to be going on in his head, how he's going to have to adjust his back, how he's going to adjust his his shot, all these different things. That built a big trust with him and I.
And what made you understand that? Was it your schooling, or was it past clients and working with them?
No, well, see, he was my first professional client.
So that's what I was wondering. How did you know all that stuff beforehand if you're just training, the rec kids and, the lady who wants to lose 5 pounds? That's what's interesting.
You know what? I wish there was only a rec lady that only wanted to lose 5 pounds. That would have been so much easier.
Sure. Yeah.
It was just, it was I played college basketball. So I had an understanding of different angles and so forth. And part of the kinesiology and exercise sciences, you learn all these stuff. You learn different angles of performance and how the body moves and what happens and the flight of a basketball and the most efficient way to get a baseball from right field into the infield. So those are all things that I actually learned in school that I was able to actually apply. When I was working at the health club, I was like, man, I literally went to school for all these years. I got this master's degree, and I'm like literally using 10% of what I know. But I always, with Michael, I got a chance to use 100% of everything I knew. And every time he had a question, I had an answer for it. And if I didn't have an answer for it, I would always tell him, I will find out for you. I didn't try to bullshit him.
And I'm sure he appreciated that.
Yeah.
Well, that's obviously fascinating. So many people always have so many questions about him, I'm sure. And we're going to be doing a lot of that, during the show, talking about, just certain situations. And you wrote 2 books.
Yes.
So you say a lot of these stories in your books, and we're going to be getting kind of into a lot more of these stories, right?
Oh, yeah, a lot of them. Listen, people are motivated and elevated by stories. That, you know what? To see that, hey, listen, the same issues that you may have going on right now, that the greatest athletes, the greatest minds, the greatest business, the greatest competitors, they've all had to deal with circumstances. They have to deal with circumstances on the basketball court, on the football field, on the baseball diamond. They have to deal with family stresses. Yeah, they may have more financial gains, more money than the average individuals, but they still have to deal with the same thing. Starting a family, going through a family crisis, going through a divorce, having to deal with multiple kids, having to deal with all these different things. So the same things that we deal with every single day, they have to deal with too. Except the only difference is their stuff is literally magnified in front of the press, in front of the news, in front of everything. So a lot of us don't have that added stress that everything we do, everything we move, every step that we take, it's being broadcasted. Nowadays, even the average individual has to deal with that because everyone has access to a camera. Everything you do, everything you say, you don't know who's listening, where it's going to end up posting. You have people that literally live their lives on social media. That can be a benefit. It can be a hindrance.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to get to our first guest here in a bit, and we'll get into what he went through and everything like that. So that's going to be cool. And it's not going to be just athletes as well. Like, we're going to talk how this relates to business and how this could relate to just the average person. So a lot of cool things here I think we'll figure out along the way.
And the great thing about this is when you get done with the 8 weeks, you will no longer be considered yourself average.
There you go. So, all right, then, without further ado, we could get to Joe Thomas, obviously one of the best offensive linemen in NFL history.
Unbelievable. Mm-hmm. I mean, his story is just amazing. You talk about an individual that literally played 11 years. He's a Pro Bowler, I think, 10 times, and he holds a record for the most consecutive consecutive plays or snaps. And he, like, for the first 10 years, never missed a single, and forget about a game, not a single snap, not a single snap. And look at it, and the transformation he had to go through from being a high school player, not knowing what position he was going to go to play, to collegiate, to being, I think he was a third overall pick in the draft. And you talk about having to deal with adversity, the team that he had to play with to perform at such a high level and take care of himself, not only physically and mentally, and not being in the best situation. So you talk about the perfect guest for the first time, because, hey, a lot of reasons you let your health slide a little bit is because you think you're not in the best situation. Well, we're not always going to be in the best situation, and the people that can deal with that adversity and still get the end result that they want. So he's the perfect guest for the first one.
And a guy who just really made a crazy physical transformation after his playing career. So
it's not even the same person. You can't even you can't even recognize him anymore.
Yeah. So without further ado, let's get to Joe Thomas here. All right, so here we are. We're joined by former Cleveland Browns left tackle, NFL Network analyst, Joe Thomas. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We're excited here. It's Tim and I. This is our first episode, first show, and we thought you'd be a great guest to bring in, just based on your transformation, playing for the Browns for so long, and just really everything. So growing up in Wisconsin, like, I think everyone just has this interpretation that you guys just breed linemen. And I know you played defense, so you played a bunch of positions, but was it always left tackle? Did you know that would always be where you end up?
So when I was in high school, I played tight end, I played defensive end, I was fullback, punter. I kind of played everything. We didn't have a huge football team, so everybody had a platoon, and we played both sides. And when I was being recruited by Paul Christ, who was the tight ends coach at Wisconsin, who's now the head coach, he was always saying, hey, you can play whatever you want here at Wisconsin. Like, if you want to be a tight end and try it out, defensive end, we're cool with that. But he's like, long term, guys that look like you, if you can put some weight on, you can make a lot of money in the NFL playing tackle. And we think that's where you could be your best. And so once I got there, they asked me pretty much right away, hey, what position do you want to play? We'd love you to try tackle. And, I was a coach's pet. I was willing to do whatever they wanted. So I was like, yeah, let's go. I'll do that. And so they transitioned me right away. I started practicing as a left tackle. They started putting weight on me. And I played a little bit of jumbo tight end as a freshman at Wisconsin. And then from there, I was the backup tackle, and I played defensive end in the bowl game. And then at the end of my freshman season, they moved the starting left tackle over to the right tackle. And then I became a starter for my sophomore season on it as a left tackle.
What weight did you start? What weight were you in high school? And what weight did you finish college at? Or how much weight did you put on in between?
So I always played basketball in the winter, and as you guys know, basketball burns a lot of calories. It's a lot of up and down, a lot of jumping, especially as a bigger guy. So my senior year in football, I was maybe like 255, 260, but then going through the basketball season, I was down to like maybe 245, 250-ish in that range. And I'll never forget, I went to the U.S. Army All-America game in January, which was right in the middle of our basketball season. And they weighed us in. And at this point, I hadn't committed to a college. And of course, our weight is going to be broadcast to all the recruiting services. Right. And I remember I had like a 5-pound weight that I put in my shorts before the weigh-in, because I was like, I can't be under 250. Like, nobody's going to think about me as a legitimate offensive lineman. I'm out here playing tackle at 245. Like, that's not going to cut it. So I had to fudge the number a little bit at the beginning. And then when I got to school my freshman year, I was 250 in July. And then by December, when I moved over and started playing defensive end, I was 285. So about a 35-pound weight gain from July to December. And I wish I could tell you it was all, brown rice and sweet potatoes and lean chicken. But the real answer is a lot of cheese curds and beer and hamburgers and late night Taco Bell and Chipotle.
Well, to put on 35 pounds, doing with just the proper food and so forth, it ain't gonna happen. But I will say one thing: it ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. But I would say one thing: for anybody that played basketball, I played college basketball myself. The people we hated playing against, whether it was in a pickup game, intramurals, recreation, whoever, was football players. Basketball players avoid getting on the same basketball court with football players. You guys just play a little differently. It kind of reminds me.
We got to be a little more physical.
If it was just a little bit more physical, we'd be okay with it. But you guys that's like saying you just had a little bit of a weight gain.
Well, that's right. Yeah. That's right. You don't want to come in the paint because there's going to be a lot of hack.
No paint, no rebounds, nothing, any of that stuff.
So then after that, how was it? Like, you go to the league after. Now, was it just consistent? Like, you never fluctuated, or what? Was it just an off season or a season thing? How did that work?
Yeah, I got up to about 300 towards the end of my career at Wisconsin. And then for the draft, for the combine, you get a weigh in. And one of the things that was maybe a weakness of mine was that they said, you might need to add a little bit of weight. So I was able to get up to like 305, maybe 307. But I still had a lot of trouble once the season started keeping that weight on, because you just practice so much. And back in those days, we were doing 2 days for 3 hours twice a day. Like, it just wears on you. Like, you're not hungry. First of all, you're so exhausted, so you can barely eat. And then you're out there 3 hours a day in 90-degree heat, smashing skulls against other dudes. Like, you're probably burning 7,500 or 10,000 calories every day. There's no way you can put that back in you. So I kind of struggled to keep that weight on. But as the season would wear on and it would get cooler and we're practicing a little bit less physical, I was able to kind of gain some weight later in the season. And then as my career wore on, like most people, you get in your late 20s, early 30s, it's a little bit easier to keep that weight on, a little harder to get it off. So I ended up kind of topping out at about 320, 325, right when I was about 30 years old. And then I started having a lot of knee and back injuries. And so one of the things the doctor said is like, hey, it might help if you just play a little bit lighter. Plus, as you get older, you get slower typically. So kind of cutting some weight to try to manage and balance that loss in quickness was a pretty good strategy. So I finished my career probably about 300 or 305.
Did you feel that make a big difference physically, like on your back and everything?
I felt it helped, but still playing in the NFL does not feel good.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I was done playing and then I made sort of a bigger weight loss that I really felt my joints feel better. But I definitely felt a difference just moving around. Like, I was on the beach in Hawaii after one of the Pro Bowls, and that was my heaviest season. I was like 320, 325. Of course, I ate nothing but like Hawaiian barbecue and fried rice that week and drank longboards. And so I was like 330 laying on the beach. I remember rolling over. I felt like I needed a forklift, like they were rolling over one of those beached whales on the beach. And that's when I realized I need to lose a couple pounds, because just moving around is tough.
Yeah.
Right. You played 11 seasons, right? And if I remember right, for 10 seasons, you never missed a game. Mm-hmm. Is that
snap?
I never missed a snap.
Right.
Yes, that's right. Never missed a snap.
Yeah, 10,363 plays in a row, and then I tore my tricep tendon.
Is that, I was going to say,
we made it 10.5 years, so that was a good run.
That's unbelievable. I was going to say, what are you doing, slacking off on the 11th year, huh?
I was slacking. Yeah, it was a lot of slacking.
What do you attribute to that, though? Like, what do you really think? Like, was that pillar to make you be able to do that?
I think your DNA and your genetics drives just about everything in life. So that was a huge part of it. But I also was very diligent taking care of my body. I was very diligent with my awareness on the field. Like, I wanted to be a student of the game where I understood, all right, there's 22 dudes on the field. Then this play, and this is the defense they're going to play. Where's everybody going to be? Where's the running back going to be cutting? Where's potential to be putting yourself at risk? Because how many times do we see an offensive lineman, he's blocking his guy, not paying attention to anything, except the guy he's blocking, and he doesn't realize the running back's hole is right behind him, and he's running through the hole. And of course, where do the tacklers come from? Usually from the inside, and they get tackled right into the back of the guy's leg. He's got his feet planted in the ground. He's not moving his feet, and so he's got a foot stuck in the ground, and somebody falls into his knee and he blows out his knee. So I was pretty good at like having that awareness of where everybody was. I was really good about making sure when I was around a pile, I wasn't stiff-legged or straight-armed where I was going to have somebody just fall into me and all of a sudden, blow a joint out like that. But I also was really big on yoga. I was really big on trying to take care of my body. I did a lot of stretching with bands. I was big on distracted stretching, if you guys are familiar with that, the supple leopard. I watched a ton of his YouTube videos trying to understand that. And I think having that mobility in my joints also helped, because I got in plenty of uncompromising positions during my career and piles and having people follow me, but having that mobility to kind of twist and contort your body to be able to get out of the injury without hitting that sticking point where it's either a ligament or a bone or something's going to go, I think is important as well.
And even with all that awareness and everything, you still, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think you had like 5 knee surgeries or 5 total surgeries.
Yeah. I think I had 5 knee surgeries, something like that. And then I had an elbow. So, I mean, it was not like football. You walk away after 10 and a half years of playing every snap and you feel like you're 12 years old again. Like, I mean, you get beat up because that cartilage is taking a beating. Like, you're a big man and you're slamming your head against other big men every single day, 60, 70 times a day. And it breaks off cartilage. It puts a lot of wear and tear on your discs and your back, especially as an offensive lineman, your ankles. I mean, got bone spurs in both my ankles and both my elbows. Like, there's just a lot of wear and tear in the game. It's a great game, but it takes a lot out of you. And so even the guys that don't miss plays are playing hurt.
Yeah. I always say the only time an athlete, a professional athlete, is 100% healthy is the first day of his career and the day he retires. That's it. Exactly. Otherwise, you're always going to end up playing with something. Always playing us something. All my clients, they used to tell me, and I used to tell them, if you put on your jersey, you're 100%. You can't make any excuses. You got to go out there. You got to go out there and perform at the highest level. But the one thing that's interesting is your awareness of the things that you talked about. It goes all the way. It goes all the way back to when you were in high school, being aware that you needed to play a bunch of different positions for, to get the most out of your body, to know where it's going to acclimate the best. Being aware of knowing how much weight you're going to play the best at. Being aware of what exercises work for you. Being aware of what the other teams are doing, what your teammate is doing. All that awareness is the mental component of that allows you to do all this stuff physically and do it at such a high level for such a long period of time.
I think it's really important that you mentioned that, because when I started in the NFL, there was zero understanding of a diet and how it affected your body, which is amazing, but also the mind muscle connection. Like, I don't know what your background is, Tom, but I really dove into the mind of bodybuilders towards the end of my career. And I learned so much from them as far as the mind muscle connection and how important that is to grow muscles, but also to be aware of everything that's happening and how all these muscles and ligaments have to work in unison to be able to make you run and cut in a safe manner. And that was something that in the middle of my career, I learned from yoga. I was not a yogi. In my 3rd season, our head coach brought in a yoga person and said, everybody has to do yoga twice a week during the off season. And I hated it at the beginning. I loved it at the end. It was the best thing that ever happened in my career, because it put me in tune and in touch with all of the little muscles in my body, so that if I was on the field and something didn't feel right, most guys come to the sideline and they're like, I got to talk to the trainer. My leg hurts. And they're like, okay, what part of your leg? Kind of back over here. I could walk over there and I could say, it's my soleus. It's exactly right in this spot. And I know because I, extended it in this manner, and this is exactly what happened. And then you give me the protocol and I would get the treatment, the prehab before I actually became an injury. And I was able to stay on the field because I knew what was going on with my body at any given moment. And so the way yoga slowed everything down and allowed me to feel all of those muscles individually and the balance and how those muscles are interrelated allowed me to become a tenfold better football player. Because I think the big flaw in football, at least when I was growing up, it was all about the old school, just toughness, work harder. If you want to be better, just go longer, go harder, go faster. Yeah. There was no emphasis on let's slow it down and let's use the way that the mind works, which the mind doesn't know if you're going full speed or half speed. It just understands the patterning and the motioning that you're going through. So maybe let's take perfect reps at half speed to learn the positioning and to feel that. And then we can speed it up and get those full speed reps. Same thing with visualization and things like that. And so before I started doing yoga, I could feel what a good block felt like. but I didn't know why. I didn't know all those muscles and how they were working together to create force from the ground up. I didn't know how getting my feet in the ground and actually feeling my toes like crunch as if they were talons on an eagle to grab the ground, to be able to create tension through the bottom of my feet, through my posterior chain, makes me so much more explosive. So even though later in my career, I was way weaker in the squat rack than I was when I was younger, I was actually way stronger on the football field.
Yes.
Because I was able to create tension in my body, and I understood the leverage and I understood how to create that power from the ground up, and to bend my ankles, knees, and hips, and to get my spine in alignment. Like, those were the little things that I learned that kept me ahead of my opponent, that I think to myself today, like, there's a lot of guys out there that are learning this. Like, there's college teams that are teaching these guys this, and I wouldn't have that advantage anymore. And I was sort of like a little guy who maybe wasn't as good of an athlete as a lot of guys I played against, but I had that advantage because I was thinking that stuff and they weren't, but now they are. So that's another reason why I can't be playing in the NFL anymore.
That's and I want to talk about the Browns for a second too. Here is obviously, Joe, you've heard it before and people talk about you. Joe Thomas, tremendous player, bad team. Does that mentally, has that ever bothered you that there always has to be a caveat, you know?
Yeah, ask me my first or second year in the NFL, it would have drove me bananas. But I was really lucky. I played for two head coaches who came right from Parcells and Bill Belichick, right? And what's the mantra you always hear from Parcells coach players? Do your job. Yep. Like, the only thing you can do to help your team win is to do your job the very best you possibly can. And the second you waste space in your brain thinking about somebody else that didn't do their job, or that they should have done this or that, or the coach should have done something else, you're wasting energy and space in your brain that could be absorbed with things that are thinking about doing your job better. And so when I was able to finally understand that, it actually really helped, because it made me a much better player. So we're down 21 in the fourth quarter and we're 2-8. Most guys are going to go, I'm just going to play about 80%, just get out of this game healthy. You know, they don't need me. We're not going to win anyway. Like, that was not my mindset. My mindset was, it's me versus my grade sheet. I'm trying to be 100% every single game. And I don't care what the scoreboard says, whether we're up big or we're down big. I need to be the same guy every single day. And that's the most valuable asset that a left tackle can be for his team. And so adapting that mindset was good for my own performance. It was good for my performance that helped my team, but it also was the sort of ancillary benefit of, hey, you've been on a lot of shitty teams, so it helps not to be as concerned with what the scoreboard is every week, and allow your emotional energy that you get from the score and the closeness of the game and the environment that you're playing in affect the focus and the energy that you play your own game with.
One thing that's common among across all sports and anything you do, if you don't go as hard as you possibly can, like if you said to players, some of them go 80% because they don't want to get hurt, or this is what's going on, that's when you get hurt.
Absolutely.
That's because not only are you're not physically putting the output that you need to, and the person you're going against may be putting 100% in. If you're only giving 80%, then mentally you're only going to give about 50 or 60%, and that's when you don't miss out on a little bit of the detail, or you start, you know what, I don't need to do these exercises anymore today, or I'm going to take this day off. You know what? I'm not going to do my yoga session today, and that it parlays into a thing. It just spirals into something even worse and worse and worse. And that's one of the reasons, listen, what you did in your career, and being able to play that many snaps in your position constantly over and over again, it's paying attention to all these little details and giving 100% effort physically and mentally, and paying to the 100% effort on all the details you had to do allows you to be this successful. It doesn't happen by mistake.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. If you're not giving 100% effort and focus at all times when you're on that field, especially in the game of football, what you're doing is you're slowing your reaction time, because you need your brain to be so focused and hyper alert that when something happens, it's just natural reaction. Yeah. So I put my foot in the ground and all of a sudden a guy comes out of nowhere and is diving at that knee. Unless my brain is on that hair trigger response, I'm not able to get my foot out of the way, right? And my foot just hangs in the ground for an extra 1/10 of a second, and boom, you blow your knee out. I was just in Ireland last week for a good friend's wedding, And if you've ever driven in Western Ireland, it's fucking bonkers. Like the roads are barely 1 car wide. You're going 80 miles an hour. There's a cliff on one side and there's a tour bus coming the other direction.
Oh, I'm going.
And it is
just to drive
crazy as you could possibly imagine. So after 5 days of that, you start feeling a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more relaxed. And I kept having to like snap myself out of it because I'm like, at any moment, you're going to go around one of these corners and you're going to need to be in that fight or flight parasympathetic mode to be able to react as quickly as possible to save your life. And it's the same thing on the football field. As soon as you lose that like fight or flight edge that you're playing with, like that's when the injuries happen because you're not able to react as quickly as you normally would.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there, obviously I follow you on Twitter, Joe. There's an element where I've seen you post. I grew up as an offensive lineman too. Like, it's a thankless job. You're in the shadows. I saw you post something like that. And, no kid wants to play it for the most part. Is there something so gratifying for you that you kind of broke through that mold where it's like, we hope Joe plays on this Browns team because this team could be a winner. Like he deserves this. Was there anything kind of a type of satisfaction you felt that everyone was kind of rooting for you and you brought like a great light to the offensive line position?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I do appreciate that because the lack of success we had in Cleveland had another ancillary benefit of, well, there's nobody else that's really any good. So I guess we got to make this left tackle sort of like the face of the franchise during this little stretch of losing.
Well, I'm going to cut you off there for a second. You earned that. You earned that. You was like, all right, wait a minute. Everybody's looking for something. And I was like, you know what? Here's a person that comes, delivers every single day. He is what the city identifies with. And this is the culture what we want. This is the guy. Here it is.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
I was very lucky to be drafted in Cleveland. I grew up outside of Milwaukee, both blue collar towns, as you guys know, hardcore football fan bases in both towns. And they appreciate offensive line play. They appreciate the guy that shows up every day with his lunch pail and is not as worried about his endorsement dollars or how many cameras are following him around after practice. He just wants to go in there, put in his work, and give his team the best chance to win. Because as a fan, like we want to see our favorite players sort of embody the same values and principles that we have. We want to be able to see a little bit of ourselves in them, in these superheroes that are on the field, putting the helmets on, doing things that we never would be able to do. But in our mind, we have an appreciation because when I go to work and I punch the clock and I'm working my ass off for 8 hours until that whistle blows, like I'm given the same level of commitment and I'm putting in that same amount of work that guy is on Sunday that I'm watching and I'm cheering for. So there definitely is a level of appreciation, especially in the Midwest, for offensive line play and what they do. And I think that definitely has raised our profile as mushrooms, which we call the offensive linemen. That's definitely raised our profile in today's NFL way more than it was, say, 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's much appreciated, It's
yeah, we know about one of your, we won't go, one of the current maybe still a current player and his endorsements and his focus and how the fans feel about that, what's going on over there.
That's right. It was funny, Jim Brown, early on in my career, we had a player that was in a contract dispute with the team. And, whether it was his place or not, he came in and talked to us and said, basically, whatever money you think you're going to make on this endorsement, like, don't worry about that because you're going to make 100 times that. If you put that energy that you did into making commercials into what you would do on the field, your contracts in football will be 100 times more than that. So if anything, it's just a good investment to invest in yourself as a player and not waste time doing the shenanigans off the field.
Yeah. Everybody needs to listen to that. So let's talk about your transition. How much time do we have? Are you okay on time?
Yeah, we'll close out with the transition. Is that okay, Joe?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Going from, 312, 325, whatever it is, to where you're at now, because most athletes go the other way.
Mm-hmm.
when they retire, if they're 320, they go to 350, 380 because they can't adjust to the lifestyle. What's changing, and now you take the activity part out of it, and they're still eating the same way, and they become more lazy, and they may not have the same mobility that they had, because I don't know any football player that's going to have the same mobility who's played as long as you have from when they first started their career to when they ended. Talk about the transition, the adjustments, and all the things that you made. I mean, hell, you look like you talk about bodybuilders. You look like one now. Well,
I just want to look like a tight end. That's my dream in life. So I'm working in that direction. But you're exactly right. I was really lucky because I had a lot of old guys when I was drafted to Cleveland, and so I was able to learn a lot from them. I've always been a very introspective and curious person. So I was really interested in asking those guys questions and just kind of following the end of their careers and seeing guys go through that transition period from when they're playing in the NFL, they retire, to what's next. And as a common fan or a regular person, you would think, oh, you made millions of dollars in the NFL. How great would that be to retire at 30 some years old and not have to do anything? But the human body doesn't allow you to just have no purpose and just float through life aimlessly and still have some type of satisfaction when you're 30 years old. And so quickly I realized that the guys that I saw that were friends of mine that had retired from the game, that were the happiest just with their life in general, were guys that were able to reinvent themselves and find another purpose. Now, of course, they're going to hopefully spend more time with their family than they were able to when they were playing ball, but they found another job or another hobby that takes up a lot of their time, that gives them meaning and purpose and gets them out of bed in the morning every single day. Those are the guys that had great success. The guys that don't have success are the ones that are not willing to humble themselves and to reinvent themselves and to go be an intern at a finance firm down the street or go back to school or do whatever it takes to find a passion in a new hobby. And also understand that you're never going to get the same emotional rush that you did walking out of a tunnel in front of 80,000 people that are screaming either for or against you. You're never going to be able to reach that emotional high. It doesn't exist in the world. So don't try to chase that, and don't try to compare what you're doing to that, but still try to find something that gives you purpose, that when you walk in that building, you're providing value for that company or for that idea or whatever it is. And I think those are the guys that had the best success. They've come up with a schedule and a structure for their life. So they are able to do some type of exercise and it becomes part of a routine. The diet is better and it becomes a little bit more of a routine. Like on the other side, teammates of mine that have gained a lot of weight, it's because they probably didn't like working out much when they played and they couldn't wait to not have to work out anymore. Right? Okay. But if you're not going to work out, then you better eat like a bird. You better eat nothing but lettuce, because as a big man, we have trained ourselves throughout our entire football career to eat a large quantity of really, really high calorie food that usually has a lot of processed food and a lot of sugar, because that's how you put the calories back in that you're burning. If you're burning 4,000 to 10,000 calories on a Sunday or during a training camp practice. So the habits have to change, and you have to realize that right away. You have to find a routine. You have to find a diet that works for you, and you have to stick with it. And I think for me, the best days that I have are when it's routine, it's rhythmic, it's scheduled. It's like I get up, boom, I accomplish this. First thing in the morning, I try to work out. And as soon as that's done, I already have a feeling of accomplishment. And the rest of the day seems easy. Not everything's maybe going to go to plan, but I feel like I've accomplished something. I've been productive, and everything, I just have energy and excitement the rest of my day.
Yeah. Hey, for people that are, and I will get this question, it's like, what's he talking about? They burned off that many calories in practice. This is what you have to remember. All right. They're also going through their practice. How much does all your equipment weigh?
Probably 15, 20 pounds.
15, maybe? 20 pounds. So imagine going through 2-a-days for 3 hours wearing a extra 20-pound vest or something. So the calories you're going to burn is not somebody that's just going on a normal treadmill that's walking or running at a pace. They're literally carrying an extra 20 pounds. And if you know what that's going to do to the caloric expenditure, that's why when he's talking about he's burning that many calories, that's part of it.
So we used to weigh ourselves before and after training camp practices to measure our hydration.
Yeah.
And you can imagine how much we're sweating I had one day, it was like mid 80s, classic summer Midwest where it was cloudy, but like 88, and the humidity was like, it was about to rain at any second, right? No wind. We were out there for 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon. I lost 12 pounds in the morning, and I gained some of it back by the afternoon because I got some IVs. And then I lost another 13 pounds in the afternoon, just water weight, just during practice. I mean, we're 310, 20-pound guys wearing a weight vest and a helmet, which makes you even hotter. So you don't have a lot of areas to disperse that heat to get rid of it. And when it's humid and there's no airflow, you're getting rid of none of that heat. So you're just sitting there and sweating. So for your average person, imagine putting on a 20-pound weight vest and your warmest wool hat, going outside when it's 90 degrees in the summer in Chicago, and go push the prowler as hard as you can for 6 seconds, but do it 80 times in a row with 20-second breaks in between. Tell me how you feel after that's done.
They couldn't tell you how they feel. They'd be done. They'd be done. You know, it's funny.
By the way, we weigh 100 pounds more than you.
Right.
So we're doing this at 320 instead of 220.
Well, I love people that always say, you know, when they watch professional athletes, they're always like, oh, I can do that. And for my response to them is, no, you can't. No, you can't. I don't even get in a discussion with them. I'm like, no, you can't.
No.
Yeah.
You're not a realist.
No, you can't.
You don't live on this planet.
Yeah.
You do what those guys do.
Yeah. Well, all right, then. I think we'll wrap on this, Joe. What do you, obviously, it's the crazy time for the Browns. What's your thoughts on all the moves, bringing in Watson and, everything that's going on there right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously, bringing in Deshaun Watson, there's two buckets that your brain sort of puts the situation in. One is like, wow, Deshaun Watson, the player, I mean, he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. When you look at the Browns roster, they got one of the best rosters in the NFL. Frankly, that's a big reason Deshaun decided to go there. They got a great defense, great weapons on offense, great running game. So they're Super Bowl contenders. So you got to feel good about that. But the thing that's holding you back about feeling good about it is Deshaun's got 22 sexual misconduct allegations that are hanging over his head that we don't know how it's going to end up and how things are going to unfold. And the fact that the Browns brought him in as a longtime fan and former player, it makes you uneasy. It's not something that feels good like it should when you get a quarterback of his resume into the building. So I'm like real torn up about it, to be honest, because I don't know how to feel, right? It's my team. I want to support them, but at the same time, you got a lot of reservations when there's 22 women accusing you of the things that they are. So I think right now my philosophy, my brain is sort of saying, let's take a wait and see approach. Let's see how the civil justice system handles these cases against Deshaun. And I want to hear from Deshaun once it's all wrapped up and the punishment has been handed down, whatever that looks like. If there's remorse, if there's some intent to be a better person, understanding of the wrongs, whatever they were. I know he's denied everything so far, but at some point I imagine we're going to get more information. And I think at that point, maybe us as Brown fans will have a better idea of how we should feel moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, the mental gymnastics that Browns fans and, past players and everything, it's got to be tough.
With all that guaranteed money. And
he's very rich.
Yes.
No question about that. The man has enough money to buy attorneys.
Yeah. They obviously the organization invested in him. And it's also what's going to happen is, listen, all this stuff is going to affect your performance either one way or another. There's all the stuff that there's all every individual I know who's whether it's in sports or business, when they're dealing with stuff, it affects their performance one way or the other. So that's yet to be determined.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like one side, you could either let it kind of ruin who you are as a football player. The other side, you could just go into your cave and come out, and the only focus you have is becoming the best football player you possibly can because there's nothing else for you to do, right?
Yeah.
And so you just commit to that, and there's a chance he comes out as a even better football player than he was before all this happened because he wants to prove it to everybody else.
Yeah.
And there's going to, everybody knows football fans, they don't mess around in all the different places. So they're going to, oh boy, they get very creative too.
Oh yeah.
They don't hold back. They get very creative with stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see. Well, Joe, thanks so much. NFL Network, anything you got to get out there, anything that people should know about you got going on?
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter at Joe Thomas73. I'm on NFL Network, and I've got a podcast, the Tom and Hawk Football Show. We don't do a whole lot during the offseason because we're pretty much NFL football, but you can check us out when the NFL season starts.
I have one last question. Was it Joseph or Joe? When did it go from, like with MJ, it was Mike, and then it became Michael, and it became MJ. So when did you go from Joseph to Joe?
So my entire life, I asked people to call me Joe, and to this day, my mom is still the only one that calls me Joseph.
Much respect.
It was a big
to
thing in high school. I'm like, Mom, call me Joe. She says, no, I named you Joseph, so I'm going to call you Joseph. I love that name. So it was a battle for a while, and then I realized my mom's a stubborn German lady. I'm not getting anywhere. Just let it go. Let her call me whatever she wants.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Joe. We really appreciate it, man. Okay, so that was Joe Thomas. Thanks again to him for coming on, and we're going to bring him back to him because he's really into the health and nutrition and working out now, and I think that would be another interesting conversation with Joe.
Well, what's great about it is his health and nutrition and his workout plan while he was playing is completely different to what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And one was extremely effective to his performance when he was playing. Now this is extremely effective and performance to what he's doing now.
Mm-hmm. And what I want to do with these interviews here, Tim, as well, is I want to kind of pick one thing that they say and see how it related to you and, the athletes you've trained. So one thing was doing your job and making sure that you just worry about yourself. How big of a challenge was that for you with the guys you train who were always constantly worrying about, oh, well, this guy got this money or this guy does this? How, on the scale, 1 out of 10, how difficult was that with everyone you talked to?
Well, you know what? The best of the best, they don't let that outside noise bother them. They're very grateful and thankful for that person that got their money and got their accolades and so forth, and they understand the pressure that's behind it. There's a thing that I was talk about is like you have to be selfish. And part of being selfish means is doing your job and taking care of yourself. If you do your job at the highest level and you take care of yourself, the team will follow. They will look at you by the example that you're carrying yourself, by the results that you're getting, and they'll be like, okay, he's focused in on what he needs to do. I need to focus in on what I need to do. It's that old adage, listen, just do your job better than anybody else. And if everybody on a team, everybody on an organization, everybody in this room does their job at the highest level and not worry about what he's doing or what that person said or what this person is doing, you will get the end result. All right. The team may not get that end result, but you're setting that example for everybody else. Don't be distracted by the minutia that's out there. And so many times it's in this society and life that are going on, we're so inundated by somebody else's life and what's going on. You could tell an individual could tell you more about what's going on in one of the housewife show or somebody on TV that's going on and couldn't tell you anything that's going on in their life. And they're using that distraction not to deal with paying attention to what they have to do with doing their job in life, taking care of themselves, being selfish for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, is there, and on that note too, is there, for people who are hopping in here for week 1, where would you kind of start? Like, what's some things you want people to kind of take in after this first episode, and myself included, obviously?
Well, the first thing I want to do with everybody is I'm not going to come on there and say, hey, listen, I want you to go exercise 30 minutes a day, or like everybody, I love this one, everybody in nutrition, drink more water. That's like the starting thing. You already know all these things. I want you to look inside and ask yourself why. Okay, if you're not in the physical shape you're at, why? All right, what's going on in your life? What's going on in your environment? All right, what's going on with your friends? What's going on with the people you're surrounding yourself with? That's causing this effect. All right. And that's the first thing you have to address. Remember what I said, exercise from a weight loss standpoint. All right. the results are from the inside out. All right, and I always say the results are going to start in your head first. Deal with what's going on in here. And understand those and be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself, and then you have to figure out how do I deal with this why. This is no longer what's your purpose. And everybody like, oh, why am I here? Why am I in this situation that I'm in? Why do I feel this way mentally? Why do I feel this way physically? What is it? Is it you? Is it your surroundings? Is it your environment? Is it your family? Is it your relationship? Is it your friends? All right. Narrow that down. Understand that first, because once you understand that first and you can deal with that situation, the rest of the stuff will be so much easier. Everybody wants to thinks about the actual pounds on their body. All right, but you have to lose and disconnect that mental baggage first.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing that people coming in may have had a preconceived notion, like, oh, I'm just going to, it starts with more water, or I have to do this. And that could be a good spot for people, is to kind of figure out, take a week and really have some self-reflection on why, like, I know why I want to do this, and that's, because I needed to make a change. And obviously, like, life longevity and just being overall more healthy is just important. So,
right.
And it factors into many aspects of my life, whether it be job related, personal life related. So, yeah, I think.
And then remember, not everybody is going to be happy for your success. All right. So when you make this transformation, like I said, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it may be, all right, you're really going to find out who's actually really in your corner or who actually put you in that corner.
Mm-hmm. That's good, and that's I feel like we haven't even reached the surface here of what we're going to talk about for the next 8 weeks, but this is a good start. This is what it's going to be. It's a health and wellness podcast from Barstool Sports. And,
like none other.
Mm-hmm, like none other.
Like none other. Right? We deal with real shit here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anybody can tell you to drink the water, go to sleep early, don't eat late, all that. We know all those things. That information is out there. Well, if you're doing all those things, you wouldn't. There has to be a reason why you're doing those things.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, keep following along. This is just the start of week 1. We'll be back next week for week 2. We're going to start a subreddit and everything like that, kind of try and build a community here. You could follow Tim. What's your social handles and everything?
I'm the easiest person to find. It's at Tim Grover.
At Tim Grover. I'm at Eddie Barstool. And then we're going to have an email component too, because we want to hear from you. We want to have you guys involved. So email at RebuilEd, just the way you see it on the graphics right now, at barstoolsports.com. You could ask Tim, you could ask Eddie, whatever you guys want, and we'll get into it. And like I said, we'll have stories. We'll be talking about the body, the mind. There's going to be a whole bunch of things, and we're kind of going to figure this out as it comes. So,
and we're going to have a lot of fun at it too.
Yeah. A lot of fun.
Right. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be a lot of fun. There's gonna be a lot of fun, and there's gonna be a lot of fun at this thing. Also, and listen, you know what? And part of having the fun is at some point you're gonna fall off the wagon. You're gonna fuck this thing up, and we're gonna tell you, hey, don't worry about it. Just jump back on, because everybody's done that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great way to end us here. Yeah. So, thanks, Tim. Thanks again to Joe Thomas for coming out for the first episode. We'll see everybody next week.